What is up? What's up, guys? Hey, I am going live on YouTube. Honestly, I just wanted to rip an episode about the CrossFit Open. I know it's been 2 weeks since we finished up, and I have a lot of thoughts from it. And I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I thought this would be beneficial to put it out there for a rewatch and for people to gain. So, this video goes out to those that did the 2026 CrossFit Open. You're thinking about how you did, good or bad. You're thinking towards next year. And then I'm going to use some really specific examples for those here at CrossFit OYL. So if you're not at CrossFit OYL, you don't have to tune out. There's still tons to be learned, but this is geared a little bit more towards the group we have here at the gym. So first off, if you did the CrossFit Open, no matter what place you got, you're already top in the world. I think sometimes we forget that a lot, that literally just signing up and actually completing all the workouts, just being inside the gym, I don't even know how to make up this number, but just puts you in the top whatever percent already in the world. And so we forget that, and we get so caught up in comparing ourselves to others. And besides one person in the whole world, everybody lost to somebody, right? And so that's something we forget. I don't remember if it's a quote or not, but it's no matter how like unhappy you might be about your score or maybe your performance, your score is somebody else's dream score. And even if you feel like relative to the whole world on the CrossFit Open, like you didn't just crush it and you got the worst scores in the entire CrossFit Open out of everybody, your score is still something that people on the outside looking in are wishing they could do. So small tangent, not the main topic for today, but I really wanted to start with that and just say congratulations for doing it. Congratulations for putting yourself out there, for finishing the Open, following it through on this promise you made to yourself that you were going to go through all 3 workouts and put in your full effort the whole time. Literally just doing it already puts you in the top in the world. So small reframe, let's dive in. Okay, so I would say every single year we see, I see tons of criticism, whether it's just the people I follow, athletes, other affiliate owners I'm friends with, members all over the place, good and bad criticism of the Open. It's there every year. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people like some workouts, some people don't like some other workouts. It felt like more criticism this year than I've heard in other years. Maybe I just listened differently. I'm not sure. And so I just wanted to jump in and throw my thoughts out there. So this year, some of the main criticism that I heard was the workouts were very basic or too easy, or they didn't test strength, or didn't have high enough skill or enough skills. We had the ring muscle ups, but I heard some comments like that. So that's where I wanted to start today. I had a friend talk about this as well, and I thought this was the best analogy. Shout out to Drew if you're watching this one, Mr. Girton out in Pendulum Fitness in California. But he was talking about like the CrossFit pyramid. The CrossFit pyramid hierarchy for building an athlete. At the bottom of the pyramid is nutrition. So first off, nutrition. I don't know how they test that in the Open. I was joking with him. Stakes for time. I don't know. The next one is metabolic conditioning, or Metcon as we call it. That's typically the conditioning AMRAP 12 that we do. Like the first workout is wall balls and box jumps and step overs. Metabolic conditioning. What is the condition of your metabolism, right? Like how easily can you take food and metabolize it, turn that into energy? That's the second level of the pyramid. The third level is gymnastics. Next is weightlifting and throwing. And at the top is sport. We see sport on TV, ESPN, the CrossFit Games, all that type of stuff. And weightlifting is a crowd favorite for sure as well. So we think about that. Obviously gymnastics, like seeing somebody be able to fly around in the rings. It's cool being upside down and walk on your hands. Like these are cool party tricks. Like somebody that can do those, you just assume that they're, very high level or good at CrossFit. And I'm here to say that may not necessarily be the case. You might just have a couple of party tricks. I don't mean to call anybody out by that. I just, I want to have this conversation related to the Open. And so, yes, the Open is kind of sport, and it's really the first step in the qualifying process for the CrossFit Games. But if you kind of look at the layout of the season, it kind of follows that pyramid. The Open is very biased towards metabolic conditioning. your ability to do 2 or 3 movements just back to forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth over and over again, and just hold on to that. That's really the test of the Open, or at least the way that they expressed it this year. Um, I was looking back over the last couple of years worth of the Open. They used to do 5 weeks of the Open. They switched to 3 weeks in 2021. So this is now the 5th or 6th year. Is it 21? Yeah, this would be the 6th year now that they've done only 3 workouts. And pretty much since that switch, besides 1 year, and it was actually somebody different programmed the Open that year. Not criticizing them. I actually kind of like that year. But really, of all the years that it's been programmed by Dave Castro, we've seen a very similar pattern to what we saw this Open, is that they're definitely very biased toward that metabolic conditioning. Yes, there's some gymnastics. Yes, there's some weightlifting, but it's definitely a sum. That's not the focus of it. And so when we, well, I'll get to that later, but when we get into class, how do I adapt my training? How do I train better for next year? All that type of stuff. I'm going to come back to that comment of our focus probably needs to be more on the metabolic conditioning layer than we realize. Okay. Next up at the quarterfinal level, like we just had quarterfinals this last weekend. Congrats to all those that made that, being in the top 25%, again, of the top, whatever, 2% of the world that even signed up for the Open. Top 25% of that's a pretty cool accomplishment. We got to see a little bit more weights, and we got to see a little bit more gymnastics. Nothing insane though. Honestly, like, yes, there was movements in there that were tough, and they were tough workouts. I'm not saying they weren't, but nothing insane, right? We had some strict handstand push-ups. Honest, I would argue that's more of a strength to body weight ratio test than it is like gymnastics. Obviously, there's an aspect of it. The deadlift bar got a little bit heavy, but again, nothing astronomical. Like guys at 315, these games, people have max deadlifts in the 400s and 500s and even 600 doing CrossFit for the, just the guy side of it. So I'm not saying it was light. It was very heavy, and I'm still sore, but nothing really not that crazy, right? It's a doable thing. Double unders, I wouldn't call that the highest skill, but I would overhead squat. We had shuttle runs, burpees over bar. What else am I missing? Oh, we had the bar muscle up. We did rings in the Open, so like definitely some, but what I would label a little bit more in the medium level of that, like gymnastics, kind of more of the medium level of weightlifting. We really didn't have any crazy weights. And so I would expect at the next level, which is the semifinal level, lots of in-person events. As they start releasing their workouts, there's going to be an online semifinal in June, kind of a catch-all for those that don't go to any of the in-person ones. I would expect those to toss around some crazy weights, doing some more gymnastic stuff, walking on their hands and pistols, and maybe some of the more complex ones. So anyways, that was kind of my first section, was like the Open's goal is, it is participatory. Like, I don't want to say it's about them making money. I don't want to cast that, but like the goal is for them to grow the sport, to grow the base of the sport. It's like having more it's like the concept of having more Little League baseball teams eventually helps have a bigger pool of people that grow up in the sport of baseball and eventually make it to the MLB. It eventually makes the MLB better years down the line. And so in a similar way, like, I do think the correct move for CrossFit is to make the Open more accessible and doable by a lot of people with scaled and foundations and options like that. I think that is their goal, is to grow the sport. I don't think the Open has to be the absolute most perfect predictor of the fittest person on earth. That being said, go look at the top 10 of the Open. They're names you recognize. The Open is still an awesome test. So that's my thoughts on the Open. So let's get into a little bit more practical. Like I said, I wrote like a couple of notes down, but I'm kind of winging this on purpose. Like, I want you guys to hear how I'd have a conversation about somebody that just walked up to me and talked about this. So how would I get better at the Open? Like, if I had a goal, right? Like, whether I've been in the gym for a couple of years, or this is maybe my first or second year, or first or second Open, and I wanted to make it to quarterfinals next year. Assuming they have top 25% make it, which, by the way, I love. I think it's a very attainable goal for almost everybody within the next 1 to 3 years. And I say that in a very serious way. If you took it seriously enough, I think it is possible, barring some like injuries or some stuff in that realm, it is a very achievable goal for almost any person that I've really met in the CrossFit world to make that top 25% over the course of the next 1 to 3 years. If you actually put your head down, you actually dialed your nutrition, you actually showed up 4 to 5 times a week, did your mobility work, actually listened to coach, actually picked all the correct weights and trained and all that, very possible. And that's one of my favorite things about it. Um, so how do we do that? Like, what's the plan? What's that 1 to 3 year plan? And so I want to dive in a little bit more specific. So this is where we're going to turn to specific workouts over the last week or two here at CrossFit OYL and how I would recommend you doing them. So the first open workout was a whole bunch of wall balls, except for like 40 people in the whole world. It turned into an AMRAP of wall balls, box jump overs, and maybe some box step overs with the medicine ball. The way you go deep in that workout is, yes, the ability to do the box jump overs. Other than that, the step overs I felt were unanimously voted upon as the easiest part of that workout of everybody I really talked to. So it really came down to who could do a bajillion wall balls in a row and hold on, or quick sets or whatever it was. Like, your ability to do a ton of squat and throw at 20 or 14 pounds, which is very light when you back up. I know in the moment it feels heavy. How many 20-pound squats can I do while I toss a ball up to a target? That's kind of what the first workout was, right? And so it's this like conditioning effect. Obviously, there is some muscular stamina in the legs. But I would say the last workout, in a very similar way of like, kind of was more of a burpee test than it was barbell, is very similar. The middle workout, yes, we upgraded the gymnastics every time. And so that got the headline. But even if you wanted to attempt the ring muscle ups, and you can do multiple chest to bar and pull ups, you still have to get there with the overhead lunges and the dumbbell snatch. And so all of them had this theme of this kind of lighter weight. Again, I'll just list guys' weights: 20 pounds in the first workout, 50 pounds in the second workout. And the last workout, just to make quarterfinals, you didn't even have to get to the last bar. So we can almost even ignore that. And same thing in the middle workout. You didn't actually have to do ring muscle ups in order to make quarterfinal level, assuming your other scores were decent. So like, to make quarterfinals, we're looking at, can I handle 20 pounds on the wall ball? Can I handle the 50-pound dumbbell? Can I be, I'm in charge of it. Can I manhandle the 50-pound dumbbell? And then on the last workout, can I handle 95 and 115 pounds? So we don't have to talk about the last bar. So when we're in class, I think wall balls is a good example of this. When I first started CrossFit, it was basically RX or nothing. Like, you could scale. I was in college at the time, so just nobody did. I would do sets of 3 wall balls, 5 wall balls all the time with the 20-pounder. That's what I used. That's what I learned with. And I would not recommend that. I would recommend learning how to do 10, 15, 20 or more reps at a time at all times at a lighter weight, and then building up in weight. I don't know why the wall ball is so different. That makes sense to us when we think about an empty barbell and we're doing snatches with a barbell. Like, yeah, I should learn with the empty bar and I should build my way up. Or I'm doing bench press, I should, get good at this before I just start slapping on weights. But with the wall ball, a lot of times we just 20 sounds easy, so we just jump up and grab it, and we can do 5 at a time, and we slug through a workout. But we forget that, like, again, back to the base of the pyramid is we're trying to crank on metabolic conditioning. Can I do a bunch of reps in a very short amount of time? And so I think it's more important for people. This was kind of the only real zinger I had written down. I think you'd be better off crushing intermediate to RX-ish of the levels we have at the gym for 10 rounds of an AMRAP than you would be getting 5 to 7 rounds of the RX plus version that we have written in class. Now, I'm still going to keep the 4 levels: beginner, intermediate, RX, and RX plus written down. But in terms of prepping for the open, you might be better off crushing intermediate, unbroken, big sets, lightweight, always touch and go with the barbell, tons of rounds. You might be better off crushing intermediate all year long and actually getting round after round after round than you would be kind of slugging your way through RX and RX plus. I don't know. I think that's a thought to play with. So what I want to do is I wanted to bring up, we did a workout last week that was the best. I thought it was the best example of this. Tuesday, March 24th. So about a week and a day ago. So just 8 days ago. We did, it was 18, 15, 12, power cleans, box jump overs, and calories on the bike. The RX version that I had written was 135/85, 24 box jump overs, and then the calorie bike. And I don't know if you guys remember, if you guys go back, I had a 10-minute time cap on this one. Almost nobody all day hit the time. It got under the time cap. There's only 2 or 3 people that really got under. And I think that's a really good. So scroll back. If you're watching this, scroll back in Chalk It Pro. Go look at Tuesday, March 24th, and look at your score. Could you have finished under the time cap if your barbell had been half of the weight and you had done all of the barbell in a row, touch and go? And I would bet for a decent amount of us that the answer is maybe yes. Like, we could have finished it if we had gone lighter and gone unbroken. Because, on that workout, I had 155 pounds listed for 135 clean and jerk for quarterfinals, but we had 135 for RX. I had 95 listed for intermediate. And again, 95, 65, like that was the weight that they used in week 3 of the Open, right? For the power cleans and then for the thrusters. And so again, it was 12 at a time in the Open. So like, it's your ability to do 12 in a row, touch and go, and hang on to that. Another example is going to be this Friday. So sneak peek for those that are listening. This Friday, we're doing a workout called Fair and Square. It's going to be 9 rounds. And let me see what the time cap is that I set up for it. 12-minute time cap. The goal is 6 to 9 minutes though. So your goal is, let's call it a minute per round. Okay. 9 rounds. It's going to be 5 burpee box jumps, not over, just burpee, then box jump, and then 5 deadlifts. Okay. Let me pull up all the numbers so I can see it. There's a ton of people listening here that can do 5 deadlifts at 225 pounds for guys and 155 pounds for ladies. We're going to do a strength set right before it, 3 sets of 5 in heavyweights at our 80%. And you're going to do more weight than that. So it's not our ability to do 5 reps in a row. It's our ability to do 9 rounds of 5 quickly. And so I think that's what gets missed a lot is when you guys look at the workout on your app, or you look at it on the TV or the whiteboard, you're like, oh, 5 reps at 225. I could do RX plus today. I can totally do that. And I can jump on that box. And so you look at that and you're thinking, hey, RX plus is a good option for me because I can do those. But what we forget is we just look at that part there and you don't look at the part right above it, which says what the goal is. And that's the real difference. And where I think some of the training gets missed is we need to be able to do it, but do it in the correct time frame. This is basically what we refer to as coaches as the stimulus. I want my fitness to be stimulated, or my heart rate or my strength. I want to be stimulated to a certain amount. I don't want, stimulated to a certain amount. I want that goal of 6 to 9 minutes. I want that to be the first thing I consider. And then with that in mind, I then go look at which level or track version would get me in 6 to 9 minutes. So then I'm looking at, okay, the RX version, 185 pounds for guys, 135 for ladies. I can still do all 5 of those in a row, but is that a weight where I can burpee box jump fast, jump off the box, jog right over to my bar and immediately just pick it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then get back to the box? And it's not going to take away from my speed on the box. Because again, 6 to 9 minutes, that's a minute or faster. That's 40 seconds to 60 seconds per round. And so to do a round of 5 burpee box jumps and 5 deadlifts in 40 seconds, that's pretty quick. And so maybe that weight for you, you're like, yeah, I mean, I can do 5 fresh all the time. I could probably do a couple of rounds like that, but I couldn't do it at that speed. So now we go look back at the intermediate level, same box height, but the deadlift is 135. And you're like, coach, come on, I only do 135 in the workout. That's a joke. Well, that's, again, we look at the open and we didn't really have these high-end weights. And so again, the conversation today is to get better at the open, to get to that top 25%. How do I train in the next 11 months to get there? I would argue with you that the intermediate level is a great test. A little bit more at the open level that you need to be good at is to crush those deadlifts. Now the deadlifts almost turn into an afterthought depending on the person. And then you can focus on the speed of the burpee box jumps. Maybe you've never tried to push your speed on burpee box jumps because you're so tired by the time you get to them in whatever the workout is because you've been picking too heavy weights. And so again, I'll probably wrap it up and bring us home here really quick. But like that's the principle that I want us to think about is when I see I don't want to pick the workout based on just the weight. So many times, and I know it because I did it too coming up in CrossFit, I still look at it. Sometimes that's the first thing I think of. And I underestimate and overestimate workouts all the time based on this. The first thing our eyes see is how heavy is the deadlift? How heavy is the thruster? How heavy is this? I had so many people asking on 26.3, like, oh, I can't do that last weight in the thrusters. And I'm just like, what about, can you do 100 plus burpees in 16 minutes paired with a light bar, right? So many times we just and again, I did this too. When you first see a workout, you just go straight to the weights. Like that's the weight is the thing that you look at. Or maybe you see a gymnastics movement, a higher end gymnastics movement. And you're like, that's the first thing you see. But you forget about some of these, what I would call these middle movements, burpees, box jumps, wall balls, kettlebell swings are in this category for me. Even running, biking, rowing. Like you forget about some of these movements. You're like, okay, yeah, I'll do the 12 calories on the rower when it's my turn. No, but what if you picked a weight that was light enough in the workout that when you got on the rower for your 12 calories, you actually ripped it. You actually had the energy and gusto to get after it on the rower, then get back to your barbell without resting, pick the bar up and do your front squats or whatever the thing is. And you're not tired from the rower and having to second guess because you know that barbell's heavier. Okay. So I'd love to have more individual conversations about this. Obviously, this is super individual. I just feel like there's a good chunk of even 40 to 60% of the CrossFit OYL competitors I saw during the Open either have this look on their face or their questions or this is how they reacted or kind of the category they fell in for the Open. And so that's why I wanted to make this video. But my big encouragement, I truly think, as this quote, I really think if you did intermediate the whole year and crushed it, I'm not saying because you can do intermediate, you'll make quarterfinals. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you stuck to maybe, especially as somebody that, lifts pretty heavy and already does, well rank wise in the gym on some of the lifts, I think you would be better off absolutely crushing burpees, running, rowing, biking, kettlebell swings, box jumps, burpee box jump overs, wall balls, dumbbell snatch, lunges. I really think you would crush. Honestly, I think I could toss double unders into there as well. And some basic pull-ups, toes to bar, some the basic level. I really think you should spend more of your time trying to get a bajillion rounds of that than necessarily getting your first muscle up. I'm not saying we don't need to work on a muscle up. I'm not saying we don't need to work on snatching heavy. And I'm not saying we don't need to work on building strength. But my argument is I think it's a little bit more biased towards the conditioning side than you guys realize. And where that can benefit you, one, in just your health, but where that can benefit in you in competition for you to be able to hold on in workouts, I think is a little bit bigger than people give credit for. So I think I'm going to end it there. Give it a little bit more credit. If you made it all the way to the end, please give it some more credit. Push that conditioning side a little bit more than you think. You'd be really surprised how that carries over to where you're then not tired in workouts because you can crush those, what I would call those medium movements. And then it's easier. We can add strength later. So cool. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this was helpful. If you have individual questions, I'd love to answer them.